Good afternoon, wildlife and forestry class. I'm here today to tell you a little bit about the parts of the tree and their functions. I'm going to do it in a few different segments because the video becomes too large for me to publish for you. So we're going to start off by looking at the tree itself and its functions in general. So there are three major parts of the tree. The first part that we'll start with is the roots. They are located underneath the soil surface and they extend just as far as the top section of the tree, which is known as the crown. Crown contains the leaves and branches, and we'll talk more about its functions in just a few minutes. And then the trunk is the center portion, also known as the stem. Okay? Each part of this tree is going to have a purpose in how that tree functions for the rest of its life. So let's take a look at the functions. Okay? So we're going to start at the bottom in the root system, all right? We know that the roots are there to hold the tree in the ground, so it makes a lot of sense that the roots might be there to anchor the tree. So we're going to move anchorage down there, okay? We also know that the roots are there to gather water because water gets absorbed in our soil. There's also minerals in the soil that can be absorbed up through the roots. It then transports those water and minerals up the tree. As a side note, since I did move transports here, transports are also happening in the trunk of the tree because the water and minerals have to get up to the top. So although the roots do transport, so does the trunk, and technically so does the crown. So you're going to see a lot of crossover in between these ideas. Okay? You're also going to find that our root system does a great job storing. It stores water for later use. It stores minerals for later use. Let's see. They're also made up of multiple different parts. So we have lateral roots, we have fibrous roots, we have tap roots, and deeply descending roots. We'll also find that our roots are good at regenerating, meaning they can, let's see if I can get this to go. There we go. They can produce a new plant in the end. So like if you take a box elder tree and you cut it down, you're going to notice it's going to send up a whole bunch of new shoots off of that trunk system. And that's its process of regenerating. That's not to say that if you cut a tree off that you won't have growth above ground, but most of the time it comes from below ground. So regeneration is most likely coming from your root system because that's the part that we didn't kill yet. It's underground. It's still able to get water and absorb some minerals. The root system, as I mentioned before, also expands further than the crown, and you can see that really well on the next slide, so make sure you're paying attention to that when I pull it up. I think I've got all of those components located correctly. So we're going to move up our tree then. We're going to hit the trunk next. It already transports water and minerals, which means it's going to also carry carbohydrates down the tree. So if water and minerals are going up, carbohydrates are going to go down. Okay? It's also going to add some springwood and summerwood to it. If you ever cut a tree open, you'll find that there are annual growth rings. Those growth rings are a result of springwood that would be added on this time of the year when the tree is flowing with all those carbohydrates. If any of you tap trees, you would know that sugars are flowing. Those sugars add wood to the tree. Okay? And all through the summer, they're going to continue to add wood because the tree is no longer dormant. Once the tree hits dormancy, it stops producing wood and that annual ring ends. And that's how we get springwood and summerwood. You're also going to find that this part of the tree has 5 major parts: heartwood, sapwood, cambium, inner bark, and outer bark. It is also what we call the main support of the tree. It is holding the entire crown in place for us. So you could also say that it supports crown. And it also helps prevent decay, which we'll talk about later. And it protects from disease, fire, and insects. And you might say, Mrs. Retzloff, that's impossible. Fire, how could it protect from fire? It's a tree, it's gonna burn. You're right, it is. But it is its first line of defense against fire. So even if it gets really hot around it, that bark is gonna protect the inside, the living part of that tree from being damaged. All right, the top part then is our crown, and the crown is going to aid in transportation. It's going to move some of our carbohydrates down the tree and to other parts of the tree. It's going to perform photosynthesis and respiration, something you would have learned about in biology, but that's necessary to produce specifically carbohydrates or sugars known as glucose. Glucose is produced in the leaves, and then it is transported down the tree so that the trunk and the roots get all the energy they need to survive. You'll find that some of that carbohydrates ends up being stored and reproduction also occurs here in the form of maybe like an apple tree, the apple seeds within the apple, or a nut tree, the nuts themselves, or like a maple tree has the helicopters. Those are all found in the crown, and that's its way of reproduction. I think I already mentioned this, but storage of carbohydrates is going to happen up here too. And we have transportation left behind. Well, transportation occurs actually in all three, so I'm just going to set it in the middle for now. And those are the functions of all parts of our tree. If you did not already, you might want to put this in your guided notes that I provided you in today's lesson so that you know these functions. You will see these on a test. That's all I have for you in this section. I will be making another video of the next components relating specifically to our root and trunk system.